Good to see you there, Ethel. You're muted. Oh, no, you're not.
I made it thanks to the rabbi.
Good thing we have technical people in our lives. Otherwise,
yeah, well, that's not me. I know how to click on and click off. Hey, my technical person's not available, so I'll worry about it next week, at the end of the week. Nothing important that I need.
You know, in the olden days, people like us, we managed to communicate with anyone we needed to, with whom anyone we needed to communicate.
I pick up the telephone. It's a lot easier.
Well, we take our 2 tin cans and a piece of string. We managed to do it. I'm
still a telephone person. You know, I don't text. I don't do that. Call me. You want me? Call me. It's the old-fashioned.
I think you and I are the only 2 people I know who still have little tiny flip phones.
I hate mine. I have to change it. It's just terrible. I have a new flip phone, but I don't like it.
Yeah, those are bigger though, the new ones.
I just don't like it.
No, I tell people if you want to talk to me, you want to send me a message, email me or call me on the phone.
That's all I tell them. Yeah.
My flip phone is in
tell my grandchildren that.
Yeah, my flip phone is in my purse.
I have 3 phones here. We're all working. Tell them to call me. Much easier.
Ross is in Boston today with what he called them the C-suite people. I said, what are the C-suite people in his company? He said the CFO, the CEO, the CIO, the C-suite people.
The C's, yeah.
So they invited him to dinner in Boston at the Hotel Lenox, some restaurant. I said, I hope you dressed appropriately.
Yeah, that's nice, yeah. I'm tired. I didn't sleep well. What else is new?
I received an email from Rhoda Goldstein earlier today. She's coming up for the unveiling for Bob, her husband.
Who's that?
Rhoda Goldstein's husband.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
She's coming up for the unveiling.
Yeah. Yeah, my brother's driving up now. I don't know where he is. It's on the road somewhere. Linda's coming.
Yeah, hopefully not dealing with the weather.
Well, I don't know. I didn't call Judy. I figured no news is good news. I'm not looking for trouble. If they had a problem, I can't help them. So, yeah.
You just pull over, find a place to stay, and wait.
Yeah, I'm sure they're capable enough to figure out that.
Yeah, apparently, from what I heard, it's moving quickly.
Yeah, it's up near New York, I think now. I don't know where it is. Oh.
We'll get it tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I have to take him out at 8:30. I couldn't get another that or like 3:30 in the afternoon. I said, no, not on a Friday. I'm not going to Salem at 3:30. I said, I got to change it back to 2 weeks. So I have to tell them what to do. I've decided. They're not telling me anymore because they don't know what.
Is there anywhere else you could do it other than Salem?
I used to have it done here, but they sent it out, and then I didn't always get the results the same day. And then the weekend, they don't call you till Monday. So I don't know what's dosage for the whole week. The weekend.
The Coumadin.
Yeah. So this way they get it. I get it right away, and it takes us 5 minutes in and out because you have an appointment.
Yeah.
You're the only person there. You have to wait in your car. They call you in every 15 minutes. And then you go and you're done. But I don't mind doing it. In fact, he likes getting out. So it's fine. It works out. But she extended it a little bit. I think it was too long. Because I think he's going to be off. Well, you know what you had when they're off. I know. So it'll be fine. he's off, we'll change it and we'll go back in 2 weeks. That's all. It's not fun. It's a quick ride. At that time of morning, there's nobody out. Not going that way.
Oh, okay, not going that way, that's true.
Yeah, they're going another way.
You're going
Doesn't
into,
take me long. I took him to Rotary at 7 o'clock this morning. That was even
that's the middle of the night.
nobody on the road, nobody going that way. In fact, they didn't even open the doors. We had to wait to open the doors.
Well, I'm very upset because I work in Wakefield. And it
Yeah,
was very nice. It was very nice when there was a COVID shutdown and there was no traffic. I want to know why all these people are on my road when I'm coming home. Get out of my way. It's my highway. Get off it.
A lot of people are out early. I mean, here, forget it. It's quiet as could be. Nobody's out. Nobody. Nobody. Might be some corners.
By the way, I called Rita and I'm picking her up. I'll leave my house around noontime and I'll pick her up.
Okay, fine, yeah.
I'll call her because she has to come down 3 flights of stairs.
Ugh. Oh, geez, that's awful. I think about that. That's awful.
Well, you know, when you own your own home, you control what gets repaired and when it gets repaired and how
Oh,
it gets.
you're right. You're right. You're under someone else's mercy, and plus you're paying for it. They're gonna pay for that. I have a friend who's thinking of moving in here, so it's Judy's friend's parents. So she called me today, so she wants to come over and look at, she sees empty apartments and she doesn't, what they look like.
Where is she from?
She lives in Peabody now. Lives in Peabody.
Who is it?
It's Judy's friend Kathy. You don't know them.
Oh,
Yeah. So I know, we know the parents. So I haven't seen them in a long time, but Judy said they were thinking of it, but now I guess they live in Huntington Woods.
they're my backyard neighbors.
4 flights. She says getting too much.
When they were building Huntington Wood, and we had right of first refusal on the first apartments because we had promised we wouldn't fight them, and they're in our backyard, and our neighbors were all against them. They had an attorney, and we wouldn't sign on because we had done a deal with them, and we weren't going to renege on our commitment. And we bought one and we sold it quickly, pre-construction.
Yeah.
And I said to Morty, no way would I ever live here.
No, it's like
go downstairs, go upstairs, go downstairs, go upstairs.
they're getting older and it's getting tougher.
Well, that's why Shirley and Bill moved out. They were there for a few years.
Yeah, he had to get trouble. Yeah. Well, we don't think of that when we're able, but we're not able. That's what happens. What happens? Oh, having a raw day out there today. It's lousy.
Well, I went to the dentist after work, and when I came out, it just started to rain. And then by the time I got home, it stopped.
Yeah, it's just raw. It's not, I didn't go out.
It was in the 60s. Yeah, it was in the 60s.
I was in, I didn't, went out for a short time. No. Tomorrow I have to go out in the rain. All right. I won't melt. I'll take an umbrella. Umbrella.
Good evening.
We have
Good
13.
evening, Rabbi.
Hi.
Good evening, Rabbi.
Hello. How's everybody this evening?
Just say good morning. It's evening. I'm a little mixed up.
It's not morning, is
I
it?
know. It will be. It'll be evening for me a long time. I don't sleep well.
No,
Long
it
night.
is Israel.
It is.
Long night.
It's somewhere.
It's morning in
Right.
Israel.
Australia, I think it's
Right.
2:00 in the
Yesterday in
morning.
one place
It's
and tomorrow in another.
1:58 a.m. in Jerusalem.
Yes.
There you go.
Jerusalem, yeah. I just got a letter from Jerusalem from my cousin. A lot of mail from him.
You did, huh?
We brought our son this weekend. if he graces us with his persona.
Well, we're certainly
Um,
looking forward to getting rid of this little tropical thing that's going to come through tomorrow. Let's hope everybody is safe and
Yeah.
doesn't lose power in the next 24 hours.
And we certainly don't need the rain.
No.
Waterlogged.
We're not even saying Mashiva Ruach Marid, you know, that thing anymore. What
That's,
is it?
no.
Maybe we
That's
should
why we
reverse.
have
Maybe we should say it.
Pouring. Pouring, you know.
Should say it.
What?
Is it all done?
What?
It's chilly out today, isn't it?
Mhm.
Oh. Nice. So,
Anyway, I'm looking forward to our guest, which will be joining us. He's with us now too, as well. John Berkowitz, he'll be joining us after our service tonight. So we're looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to Adele, who will, before we start tonight, I'm putting her on notice.
Oh,
I know Paula is our timekeeper, and Paula's with us. And after Paula makes the announcement of the time, Adele is going to give us a number that I think will make us all think a little bit as we begin our last official Zoom service that began on March 12th, 2020. So when Paula's ready, Paula, call it.
I'm ready. Today is Thursday, July 8th, and it is 7:00 p.m.
You've been saying that for, Adele, how many nights?
482.
482 days since the pandemic began that we have not missed a million, that we've had way more than a million attending our services every single day. And Rabbi Bernie did his last official, off-site Zoom service last night. And this evening I'll do mine. And after this, it's all in the sanctuary, unless it snows. But you'll still be using your own book. So here it is. For the last time, we'll do the Ashrei, the Kaddish for Mincha, and then we will do the Marav service. Ashrei shevetech luchasela, Ashrei shaklo, Ashrei shnai lahavti lala David. Aramim chalahayam malach v'chashim chalelam bed, b'chayim v'chech v'lashim chalelam bed, gadol l'malom ma'opelik dorotoy cheker. Dolador shavach masacha g'rotach yagidu hadar k'vodadecha v'divrei niflotecha sicha ve'ezuz narotach yom. Ugdolatcha saprana zecha rabtecha yobi v'tzivcha chayranenu chanum v'rachmanaycha b'amadoch chased. Tov v'nadal kol v'racham avakol masav v'duchanay kol masach v'chasidach evachucha k'vo malchut chayomeru. Ugvrot chayidaberu. Lo de'elev ne'adam geburot havakvar adam malchut ho malchut cha malchut kol olamim. Mem shalach b'chol dor v'ador somech and le'lochor noflim b'zokeh b'chol ha'kufim. Ehinei kol elecha yisaberu v'tonoten lahem v'tachon bita poteach et yadecha. Umas bielchol chayratzon tzadik and b'chol rachav v'chasi b'chol masab korov v'nelechol korov b'chol esher kru v'emet ritzoni re'av ya'aseh v'yetche b'tamishma v'yoshiyem shemeronai korova v'korashim yashmid tilat Adonai daber pi v'yivarach kol basar shem kadsho le'olam va'ed v'anach ne'varach ya'ah me'at haviyad olam. Hallelujah. Now the mourner's Kaddish for, what day is this, Adele? What day is it? Thursday?
It's
Thursday. For those of you saying Kaddish for Yortzeit, for Thursday or for a loved one, you would stand, open your mic, and let us say the words together. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah v'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah v'barach le'olam v'olmei olmaya Yiparach v'yishkabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'halal shemei d'kudisha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushvachata v'nechamata Da'amiran de'alma v'yamru amen. Yehi shalom Abba Shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. Oseh shalom b'romav v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru
Amen.
amen. And now the Marav service. If you wish to join, you may do so for the response. And please remute your microphones right after I've concluded the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. Adonai Hashem Melech Yaneinu v'Yoham Kareinu Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevarach
Baruch Adonai Le'olam.
Baruch Adonai HaMevarach Le'olam Va'ed. Please mute your mics. Asher bevarim arviroi b'chamav shiri b'chamav b'shmartahem b'yakaratano b'rayam v'layla golel or mitnei choshev v'choshek mitnei or mavirim amevi layla mavdil ben yom ben layla Adonai tzvaot shemo el chavekayam tamidim locha aleinu lila v'bruch Adonai Amari v'haravim avat olam beit Yisrael amcha hafta Torah mitzvot mishpatim adam malchut k'nei b'shmel k'nei ונשמח בדברי תורתך מצוותך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ברוך יומנו והם נגי ימם ולילה ועבודך תעשה ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו Yisrael. If you wish to join, you may open mics and join me for the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Please remute your microphones. We have to eat Adonai Elohecha b'chol avavcha b'chol nafshecha b'chol ma'odecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al avavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha v'lechtecha b'derech v'shavcha v'kumecha v'kshatam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu l'totafo b'ninecha uchtaftam al mezuzo beitecha Uvisharecha v'haya im shemoa tishma'u el nesvotai asher anochi mitzvotchem miyom b'livatachem avoda b'chol b'chem b'chol nafshechem. V'natatem v'teitzem v'makoshem v'satem v'necha v'tzoreshcha v'tzarecha v'nadesa v'svecha l'mehem b'hakol v'chol v'zabat v'yishim v'chepen v'tzalochem. Besides, pressure they stuck with the lamp of carbon double comments at the Shema Lamatar. But the man looked at them below, and may not the Basha, none of them come. The sound of all of them beyond the Shechem, which them only out of them, but it was Bob and in Echem. But the Maritamotam Ebenechem, the Bam Bishop, the Rabavetacha, the Devakushap Kafkumecha, Oktamo was of Betaka Visharecha. Lema hanyebu maybe nechem al ha'adama asher nishma Adonai lavotechem latet lahem kimei shemayim al haaretz vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'yamarta alehem v'yasu lahem tzitzit al kanfei v'deihem l'dorotam v'natnu Al tzitzit kanaf betil techelet v'haya lachem l'tzitzit uritem oto uschartem ekom mitzvot Adonai v'yasitem otam v'lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem asher etem zonim achareihem leman tizkeru v'yasitem ekom mitzvotai V'tem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem emet emet v'yemer kol zot v'karem aleinu ki l'nalehenu v'emdolatov v'nachvi yisrael abadem ya'malachim ha'keinu ha'gonem mikov korotzim Ho el hanifra lanu mitzareinu v'ham shalem gemolacho eloi v'idei nafshenu ha'seged lolot adei cheker v'niflaot adei mispar ha'sam nashenu v'chayim v'lonatan lamot ragleinu ha'madruchenu v'moit adenu v'mkenu ha'kol sonenu ha'seh lanu nisim ha'kana b'faro b'oftot u'maftim b'amat b'necham המכה בבראתו כל בחרי במצרים ויוצא את עמו ישראל בתוכם לחירות עולם. המעביר בנה בין גזרי ים סוף ואת רודפי בצונאיהם ואת עמותי בעברו ורב גבעתו שיבחו והודו לשמו. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה בני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה. ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע יום לפני משה זה אלינו, ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי באדוני את יעקב וגולו חזק ממנו, ברוך אדוני גואל Yisrael. And now the Hashkivenu in English. If you wish to join me with mics open, you may do so in the English. Help us, Adonai,
To
lie down in peace and awaken us again your sovereign delight. Spread over us your shelter of peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Save us because of your mercy. Shield us from enemies and pestilence, from starvation to sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, O God, who watches over us and delivers us, our gracious and merciful ruler. Guard our coming and our going. Grant us life and peace now and always. Praised are you, Adonai, eternal guardian of your people Israel. We'll ask you to please remute your microphones. Ushmor tzeiteinu avoinu l'chaim l'shalom yata v'yad olam baruch Adonai shomer amo Yisrael lo'ad. Baruch Adonai le'olam amen v'amen. Baruch Adonai b'tzion shochein Yerushalayim. Hallelujah. Baruch Elohim Elohei Yisrael oseh nefla'ot levodo baruch shem kvodo le'olam v'yamalek v'odo kol haaretz amen v'amen. Yehi kvod Adonai le'olam yismach Adonai b'masav yehi shem Adonai mevarach me'ata v'yad olam. Ki lo yitash Adonai et amo b'yavur shemo hagadol ki ha'il Adonai lasot etchem lo la'am v'yar kol ha'am v'yiflu al pneihem v'yamru Adonai hu ha'Elohim Adonai hu ha'Elohim v'hayaron el melech kol ha'aretz b'yom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad yehi chastecha Adonai Eloheinu kasher yichalnu lach. Osher Adonai Eloheinu v'kol tzedek v'tzedek min hagoyim l'odot l'shem kodshecha l'ishtabech b'tilatecha kol goyim asher asita yavo'u v'yishach b'lefanecha Adonai v'yachvodu shemecha yigadol ata v'yoseh nefla'ot ata Elohim levadecha v'yanachnu amcha b'tzom maritecha nodeh lecha le'olam l'dov adon esaper tehilatecha. Baruch Adonai bayom, Baruch Adonai balayla. Baruch Adonai b'shachmeinu, Baruch b'kumenu, ki b'yachad nashot hachayim. V'hamitim asher b'yado nefesh kol chai v'ruach kol basar ish b'yadcha av ki ruchi v'dita oti Adonai el emet. Eloheinu shebashamayim yached shimcha v'kayim malchutcha tamim molech aleinu le'olam va'ed. Yeru einenu v'yismach libenu v'tagel nashenu b'shvotacha be'emet. Ve'emor l'tzor malach Elohayich. Adonai melech, Adonai malach. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Ki ha'malchut shalcha hi omet timloch b'chavod ki lanu melech ela ata baruch ata Adonai hamelech b'chvodo tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed v'al kol ma'asav. And we rise if you feel it appropriate. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah. Bi'alma livrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechonu v'yomechonu chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala u'bizman kari v'yemaru Amen yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam v'lo me'omaya. Yebarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'romam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kodesha berichu le'yela min kol b'chata b'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata damiram b'yalma v'yemaru. Amen. And now the Amidah will be silent. I'll say it softly. If you care to join along in the Hebrew with me, you may do so. Otherwise, on your own Hebrew, English, or just say the words in your heart, the Amidah is a time for personal and private reflection. אתה גיבור למעלה מלחמתם אתה רב להושיע, מחלקכם בחסד מלחמתם ברחמים, רבים סומך נופלים ורופך למטר סורים. ומקיים מנתו לשני עפר מחמוך הבא גברות ומידו מלאך מלאך ביתומכם עצמך ישועה. ונאמר אתם עדים ברוגנם בחיי המתים, אתה קדוש ושמך הקדוש, קדוש בכל פסל ברוגני האל הקדוש. אתה חונן לאדם דעת, ולמד לאנוש בינה, חנן מיוחדי אבינה ויעסק ברוגני חונן הדעת. השיבנו אבינו לפרותך בקרבנו מלכנו ולא לבורתך, חצירנו בתשובה שמענו לפניך, ברוגני רוצה בתשובה. סלח לנו אבינו, כי חטאנו מחלנו, כי פשענו קמלך וסדך, אתה ברוגני חוננו מרבה לסלוח. ראינו ואיננו ורע וראינו, ועולה מרע למען שמך, כי גואל חזק אתה ברוגני גואל ישראל. רפאנו רבני רפא ואשר רבינו ואשר, כי תלנו אתה, ואלה רפואה שממלכו מלכותנו, ולזו ונחנה אלוהינו ואבותינו, שתלך מהרה רפואה שמאמין נשמע פרט הנפש פרט הגוף, את כל החולים והחברים שלי מנר תמיד ויית. בתוך של החולי ישראל, וחזק את ידי עוסקים בצורכיהם, כי המלך רופא נאמן ורחמנותיו ברוחמי, רופא חולי עמו ישראל, ברוך אלינו לאלוהינו את השנה זו, וכל מיני טובות עלות אבל, ותן ברכה על פני האדמה. וסבינו מטובה, ברוך שנתנו כשנים הטובות, ברוך נם בברך השנים. תקבל שפר גדול לחירותנו, ושנא תקבל תקולותינו, וקבצי יחמי בקפות הארץ, ברוך נם מקבץ יחי עמו ישראל. השיבה שבתנו, כבראשונה, ויוצאנו מחווה תחילה, ועשה ממנו יגון בנחל מלך עלינו, אתה לבדק וחץ ברחמים בצקן במשפט ברוך נאי, מלך אוהב, צדקה ומשפט, ולמל שינים, אל תהיה תקווה בכל אשר כרגע תביא. בכל וחברי יחרדו ובזדים מרע תקר תשבר תמגר ותכניע במרע בימינו ברוך נאי שובר אויבים ומכניע זדים על הצדיקים ועל החסידים ויעצנים כבד ישראל ויפלת צפרם וגר צדק בימינו ימנו רחמך עלינו ותן צדקתם לכל בכי בשמך באמת בשמחה חלקנו עמהם ולעולם לא נבוש כי בך בטחנו ברוך אדוני משענו מפתח לצדיקים ולירושלים ירחה ברחמים תשוב ותשכם בתוכך כאשר דיברת ובני אותה בקרוב ימינו ובניין עולם בכיסא דברי מהרה לתוכה תחים ברוך אדוני בנה ירושלים את שמח תעביר בך מהרה תצמיח וקרנו תרום בשבתך כדשבתך יבינו כל היום ברוך אדוני מצמיח קרן ישועה שמע קולנו אדוני אלוהינו חוס רחם עלינו וקבל ברחמים ושונא תפילותינו כי על שמע תפילת תקנים אתה מפונך מלכנו רקם אל תשיבנו כי אתה שומע תפילת עמך ישראל ברחמים ברוך אדוני שומע תפילה רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל תפילתם וישב את עבודה בביתך ותפילתם ועבדת גבה ברצון ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים ברוך אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון מודים אנחנו לך שאתה אדוני אלוהינו ונתנו לנו בצורך מגניתנו אתה לא תבודו נדע לך לספר תפילתך חיינים מצורם בידך ועל שמתך ובגדות לך ויעל ניסחר שבכל יותם עמנו ואמתתך ותורתך שבכל תת בבוקר ותורם הטוב כרוחמך אברהם מלכים כיום תמוך חסדך ועולם קיווינו לך ויעל כולם מברק ותרמם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד וכל החיים ולחסה ולא שמך באמת האיש ותן וזדנו סלע ברוך אדוני הטוב שמך לפני להודות שלום רב ישראל לך ויעקב ישרי תביעות תשים לעולם כי אתה המלך אדון לכל השלום ואתה בנך רברתם חסרה בכל עת ובכל שעה בשמך ברוך אתה אדוני המבורך את עמו ישראל בשלום. And now, if you wish to join me for the passage after the Amidah, you may do so. At the word Redeemer, we are going to stop and we'll sing Oseh Shalom together. Together. My God, keep my tongue from evil, my lips from lies. Help me ignore those who would slander me.
slander me.
Let me
Let
be
me be
humble
humble
before
before
all.
all.
Open my heart to your Torah. I may pursue your mitzvot. Frustrate the designs of those who plot evil against me. Make nothing of their schemes.
For the sake
Act for the sake of your compassion, your power, your holiness, and your Torah. Answer my prayer for the deliverance of your people. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, Adonai, my rock, my redeemer. Oh, say shalom dimrama. Oh, yaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'yakol Yisrael. Ve'imru imruah. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'yakol Yisrael. 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 Amen. And one who brings peace to his universe, bring peace to us, to all the people of Israel, B'al kol yoshvei tevel, and all who dwell on God's earth. And we will all together say, Amen.
Amen.
We are going to pray for those who are ill, the Misha Berach, for those who might not be feeling very well. When I stop, you may say the name or names of people you are praying for, and then please remute your microphone right after you do the name. Misha Berach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah V'Kavracha V'Yahu Yivarech V'Rafei Et.
Wrote it.
איזו ליגו
Liz
דווקא בנימין,
Garrett,
בנימין
Thomas Abbott,
דמרקה
Eddie
דווקא בת
Wisconsin,
רחל,
Mosak,
איתו בת
Fred
מרים,
Hopkins,
ג'פרי נימן
Mark
ושלום
Stewart,
סלסקי
Steve
סטופ
Bradley,
מוזיק,
and Jeff
פאבי
Schultz.
קולן מנטו בת אברהם,
Jeff
ג'ון
Schultz, Peter
Naomi
Peterson,
אלמנת שומן,
Reverend Francisco
Brody,
Tolentino,
Carol Thomas,
רחל בת
Justin
מרדכי,
Phillips,
Dennis, Susan Lonis,
Alice
Arlene Group,
Piacente,
David
and
Shapiro.
Donna Claycomb.
If you've completed, please mute. All the May God bring blessing and healing to all the folks we've just mentioned, all those we know of, those we may not know of. Those are on our lists, those who are suffering everywhere from all different issues that surround them. Perhaps they may be dealing with physical or emotional ailments, those in our congregational family who are ill. May the Holy One mercifully restore them to health and to vigor, granting them physical and spiritual well-being together with people everywhere who may be ill. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach imotenu mikor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And now the Kaddish Shalem. Yikadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'yalmadi brach yirutei v'yamak malchutei b'chaychon v'yamachon v'chadachol be'Yisrael. Israel. B'galav izman karevi yamaru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach. Le'olam olam me'omaya. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'bar v'romam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitlav shmei kodeshah. Berichu leilam in kopekata v'shirata tush b'chata b'nechmata dam yiram b'yama v'yimru. Amen. Tikabas lo donaboton de Israel kadama v'hod v'shmai v'imru. Amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleim v'kozra v'imru. Amen. Noseh shalom b'mrom avu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kozra v'imru. Amen. You may open and join me. This will be the last time. Thank God. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'tekel l'aliyos shelo asanu yoyei haratzot v'lo tzamanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo samkalkeinu kahem v'kor aleinu k'chol hamonam. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שרוט השמיים ויוסד הארץ ומושב יקרו השמיים יגאל שירתו זו בגבי מרומים הוא אלוהינו and that Malkeinu Efezato Akato B'Torato V'Yadatayam V'Hashevota Elevabecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim Bashamayim Nimal V'Yaretz V'Hitalachad Eno Okay, Nikabel Adonai imloch leolam ba'ed Oh Shamo, oh Shamo. Now, for those of you not saying the Kaddish, please mute. Those of you reciting the Kaddish for a yortzeit or a loved one, if you wish to say the name of the person you're remembering tonight, you may do so now.
Eva Orloff.
Janet Kaufman.
Mordechai Ben Esther.
My mother, Donna.
And in tribute to our loved ones, we invite those mourning and observing a yortzeit to now rise and join us as we say the words of the mourner's Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'yalmad yivrach yirutei. Amlich malchutei. B'chaychom v'yomechom v'chayei b'chol beit Yisrael. B'agala v'zman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehei Rabba v'varach olam v'lomei v'haya. Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yipar v'yitroman v'yitmasei. V'yithadar v'yitzaval shnei v'kudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata damira v'alma v'yamru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al Yisrael v'yamru amen. Oseh Shalom Bimrama, V'yaseh Shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
Amen. Oh, Ethel, you have a yortzeit tonight for
Yes, I do. My mother.
your mother. Would you lead? Would you be one of the leaders?
Sure.
Of
Love to.
course. Thank you. And Arlene Teitelbaum, I'm going to ask you to join Ethel tonight. Would you mind?
It would be my privilege, thank you.
I knew you would say that. So Ethel, why don't you start?
All right. Adonai is sovereign, crowned with splendor. Adonai reigns, robed in strength.
You set the earth on a sure foundation. You created a world that stands firm.
Your kingdom stands from earliest time. You are eternal.
The rivers may rise and rage. The waters may pound and pulsate. The floods may swirl and storm.
Yet above the crash of the sea and its mighty breakers is Adonai our God supreme.
Your decrees, Adonai, never fail. Holiness befits your house for eternity.
Eidotecha namnu me'od, leveyotecha na'u kadosh Adonai le'arat yamim.
Ethel, thank you for that. And again, you're remembering your mother tonight, a blessed memory. May her memory be for a blessing. And thank you for reading that. And Arlene, thank you for doing that as well, Arlene. We appreciate it. Mourner's Kaddish for the second time. For those of you saying the Kaddish, please rise and let us say the words together. Yitgadal, Shemei Rabbah, B'Alma, Divra, Chivrutei, B'Amlich, Malchutei, B'Chayechon, B'Yomechon, B'Chayei, Dechol Beit Yisrael, B'Gala, B'Zman, Kariv, V'Yamru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, Olam Maya. Yibarach, Yishabach, V'Yipar, V'Yiromam, V'Yitnaseh, V'Yitadar, V'Yithaleh, V'Yithalal, Shemei D'Kudeshah B'Rihu, Le'elam Yimkol Birchata B'Shirata, Tushbachata V'Nechemata, Da'amim V'Yalmam, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbanim Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael Yiru. Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Rama U'Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael Yiru.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. At this time, I'll ask everybody to please mute your microphones. And for the last time, it is my pleasure to call upon our president, Adele Labarsky, who will now give us the announcements through Hanukkah.
That is correct, Rabbi. Thank you. And just and those of you who love numbers, I said in the beginning, since the 2 weeks that we were closed, we had 482 consistent minions, and that makes 69 weeks or 1.32 years. I didn't do the hours, but I can do the hours for you at some point. But anyway, that's a lot of support from our temple. So I thank you. Remember too, that we will be starting next week in person and on Zoom. If you are comfortable to join us in person, I encourage you to come. We'll be in the sanctuary. And so please try to volunteer for at least one evening per week, Monday through Thursday. This week, Friday night will be at 8 o'clock, Saturday morning at 9:30. A week from tomorrow, which is the 16th, we have our barbecue that will begin at 6 o'clock. We're going to be very COVID safe. We have all of these regulations in place for serving food. And services that Friday night will be at 7 p.m. So that'll be an early service. So I encourage you to come. Remember, Rosh Hashanah, Erev Rosh Hashanah is Labor Day, September 6th. And Hanukkah, the first night of Hanukkah, is November 28th.
Stop.
I'm going to test you. Remember the number 482. Don't forget about tzedakah. And Rabbi, thank you so much for being the person who guided us through 482 services. yeah, I'm sure in the very beginning when we were talking about this, you were like, oh, 2 weeks, don't worry about it. And 2 weeks blended into 69 weeks. So
Unbelievable.
everyone have a wonderful evening. Erev Tov and Yesher Koach, Rabbi.
I would be remiss if I didn't thank Rabbi Bernie. I know he was on last night for his last Wednesday night and spoke to him today. He says, oh yeah, I took my light down. I've broken the office down. We're all done. And yeah, it's good to be seeing normality start to, shine its head again. And we are looking forward, although the service will remain, as you said, in the sanctuary, and we're going to continue to be careful. We want to maintain some smart, decisions that we're making to make sure that we do this slowly and carefully and make sure everybody feels comfortable. So that's where we're going to go, and you'll see the metamorphosis that will continue to take place like a butterfly. Anyway, speaking of metamorphose, let us turn to our evening guest here tonight. And I'm going to introduce John Berkowitz, who's joining us. John is of Northampton, the director of the past 4 years of the statewide organization, Massachusetts Death with Dignity. It informs the public about the issues of death with dignity, also known as medical compassionate aid in dying for the people who are terminally ill and mentally capable of making their own end-of-life healthcare decisions. He is an advocate or advocates for passage of the legislature of the End-of-Life Options Act, as 10 other states plus Washington, D.C., along with nations such as Canada have done over the past 24 years. John spoke to our rabbinic group a few weeks ago, and I thought he would be an amazing guest for us to have here tonight to start the conversation, to have a discussion with, and to learn about this very important topic. John, before I turn things over to you, I just want to make sure you know that we are continuing right now to be broadcasting live on YouTube and on Facebook, and I want to make sure you don't have a problem with that. Are you okay with that? John, you can just unmute your microphone, or let's do that for you.
I am.
All right, there we go. John, do you have a problem with us being broadcasting on YouTube and Facebook?
It's fine.
You're okay with that? Okay. And therefore, I just wanted to make sure you knew that. And so everybody, please keep your microphones muted until John is finished with his presentation, and then he's going to open it up to Q&A. And I know everybody knows how to do that. We'll do that quietly, carefully, and respectfully. John, a pleasure. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Rabbi Perlman, and for that introduction. I don't know if I can live up to his description of amazing. He used the word amazing. I'm a little nervous about trying to live up to that, but I hope at the very least we have a really good discussion about a very important topic about end-of-life healthcare choices and decisions. And I did really enjoy talking to the North Shore Rabbis Association, and I was referred to them by Rabbi David Kudan. Now, is he in this same temple or the other one?
Yeah. No, he is at the synagogue on the other side of Lowell Street. He and I are co-presidents of the North Shore group.
That's right. Anyway, I'm glad to be here tonight, and I'm glad to be dry in my house. I took a walk with a friend, and it got rained on. Didn't have an umbrella. I'm glad to be dry and at home. The bio, the little bit of information that Rabbi Perlman just gave really gave a kind of summary of what death with dignity means. It's an option for people who are terminally ill with cancer, heart disease, ALS, terminal illnesses. And it's also only an option for those states that have passed this law already, and those nations that have passed this law already, such as Canada. One has to be mentally capable. One cannot have Alzheimer's or dementia, the advanced stages of that, because people in that condition are just unable to make cognitive choices, and understand the consequences of their actions. So these laws for death with dignity, this option of medical aid in dying when one is terminally ill, less than 6 months or less to live, those are some of the key qualifications that limit it, so that you have to really know what you're asking for. You have to understand the consequences of what you're asking if you want to qualify, if a state has legalized this. And as Rabbi Perlman said, my organization, Massachusetts Death with Dignity, that I've been the director of, by the way, I do this voluntarily for the whole 4 years. I'm retired. I'm 74. It's just something I feel strongly about and passionate about. And I would like to have this option legal in the state of Massachusetts, so that if I was at the end of my journey in my life and I had a terminal illness and I faced, everybody faces the possibility of sometimes death is very easy and sometimes it cannot be. And then the question really is, and that's what has been, this issue has been around for 30 years. Oregon passed this law 24 years ago, Washington State 12 years ago. People have been thinking about this for a long time. And I just want to illustrate it with a couple of stories, because, behind every movement for anything worthwhile in our world, any kind of change is a story, is a personal human story. So a legislator from Stoughton, down below southwest a bit, down below Boston, his name is, I'm mixing it up with, his last name is Kafka, and I want to say Franz, the author, but it's Lou. I'm just having that moment. It rained on me a lot today. Louis Kafka, the legislator, he was in the legislature for 32 years and he just retired last December after a 32-year career. And he was the lead sponsor. He was the mover and the shaker behind the bill, the Death with Dignity bill. And it's been always been called the End of Life Options Act. There's that key word again, options. Well, why did he pick up this baton and why did he pick up this cause and run with it? Because in 2007, I just heard him tell this story. I'm just passing it on, Everybody hears me all right? Because I just had a technical.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Good. You never know when it's going to happen. Well, Representative Lou Kafka talks about a very good friend of his, Al, who was suffering from pancreatic cancer, difficult cancer. And it was just getting so difficult. And in spite of the best efforts of hospice and palliative care, his friend said, Lou, this is really hard. This is very difficult. I don't want to continue with this for days, weeks, maybe even a month. Is there anything you can do? Is there something you can give me? I'm just ready to go. I don't want to go through this kind of suffering, even though they're really trying, pain management, all of it, and hospice has come a huge distance, long way since, I think it was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross back there in 1970 or something like that. Started palliative care in the hospital, do a great job. But there's many situations like his friend Al, Representative Kafka's friend Al. It's just not enough. They cannot relieve, they cannot keep people comfortable. And it is a very difficult ending. And it was difficult for his friend Lou Kafka to watch and to say, I'm sorry, it's not legal. I can't, a doctor would be sued. A doctor could be imprisoned, for giving you enough medication or some way of ending your suffering peacefully. If you chose to, it can't be done. And so his friend Al did die, and it was not easy. And before he died, Representative Kafka said, I'm going to fight for this. I'm going to push for this. I see that Oregon has had this law for a few years. This is back in 2007. Washington State passed it. Then Vermont passed it 8 or 9 years ago. He promised his friend, he pledged to his friend, he was going to fight to make sure that people had this option, people had this choice at the end. And I'll just make it very explicit and real, what that choice actually means. If you're terminally ill and mentally capable, then the law says you can ask your doctor. And by the way, it's entirely optional, both for patients. Nobody is forced to choose this option or take it. And no doctor is mandated to advise or counsel, or if the doctor is willing to, prescribe a medication, a life-ending medication that puts the patient into a coma after taking it in about 3 minutes, very quickly, and 20 minutes to 2 hours, the patient dies peacefully, painlessly in their sleep. And I didn't mention that the way these laws work is that the patient, if he or she has accessed this law, if it exists in Massachusetts in the future, if they receive that medication prescribed by their doctor, they keep it in their medicine cabinet. They're still getting hospice care. They're still doing their best to live as long as they can, as comfortably as they can. But if they reach a point where it's just not working, it's not easy, they then make the choice and they pick a day whenever they feel it's the right time, or the pain and suffering has just reached a point. They must self-administer that medication. Nobody can do it for them. This is not any form of euthanasia or coercion, potentially coercion, where somebody is doing it to you and maybe you didn't really want that to happen. No. In all the cases, all the examples where people have used this law, in Oregon, in Vermont, in New Jersey, they passed the Maine, that was in 2019, those two states. No person's decision or forced into taking the medication if it was against their will. Of course, there's a concern, that could that happen? Would that be a misuse or an abuse of this law? Somebody vulnerable, a frail person, very sick at the end of life? Of course. But people who have fought for this law, they have also fought for very strong safeguards to be built into these laws, so that, like, for instance, if somebody was accused of coercing somebody into taking this, and obviously the patient was no longer around, they took the medication, but somebody could be convicted and imprisoned for a long time. It is a felony crime to be convicted of such coercion. So that's one example of a number of safeguards, and including that you must be mentally capable of understanding what you're asking for. And you must be mentally capable at the very end, because if you no longer, that's what I meant about if you're suffering from dementia, advanced dementia and Alzheimer's, you're not able to understand, oh, I have that medication in the cabinet and I really am, I'm suffering now with 6 months or less to live in this long process of Alzheimer's. No, you're not able to do that. So you're also not eligible to receive this medication or take it. I'll just speak for a few more minutes because I really like to dialogue with the audience. I will only ask just one thing, which is because there's a lot of you here in the audience, and I really value hearing from a lot of people and enabling as many people as possible to ask their question or make their comment. Ask your question or make the comment in like 30 seconds. Keep it really brief. I can respond to it, and then we can go on and just get to that many more questions and comments in the Q&A. So just a couple more things. Well, the bill itself, the End of Life Options Act, it has more support than ever before. People have been working on this for 10 or 12 years under Representative Kafka. He retired. Now it has a new lead sponsor, a guy named, James O'Day, a representative from out in Worcester. And this year it has more co-sponsors of the bill than ever before. In fact, 18 more than last year, 64 House members. And then there are there are many senators, like 18 senators. So it's about 40% of the legislature now is co-sponsoring this bill. That's a very good sign. It doesn't automatically mean that every one of them will vote for it if it reaches a vote, but it's certainly a clear sign that if they signed on and said, I'll co-sponsor this bill, they support it. And I'll just give you one example from nearby. Your state senator for your district is, I believe it's Joan Lovely. Yeah. She's one of the co-sponsors in the Senate. And Swampscott down below Salem, and next door, Sally Cairns, the new representative for Danvers. She's in the House and she's a co-sponsor. Last year, your state rep, Thomas Walsh for Peabody. I'm pausing because I still want to say Peabody, but I've been told No, that's not right. You pronounce it Peabody. Thomas Walsh, he actually met with some of our advocates. There was a large meeting at a retirement community, and I cannot think of its name. Maybe you would know it. Large.
Brooksby Village.
Thank you. That's familiar, and I think that's the one. Yep. And there was a lot of support there for this. And Representative Walsh, I'm not sure if he was there in person or he just responded afterwards, but he said, I'm very supportive of this bill. That was last year, maybe a year and a half ago. In fact, that was when there were meetings in person, before the COVID crisis. Unfortunately, Representative Walsh is not a co-sponsor yet on the bill. And that's partly why I reached out to first Rabbi Kudan and now Rabbi Perlman, and speaking with you and speaking with other organizations and groupings of people, because we're just moving around the state trying to increase that total of support in the legislature so that Thomas Walsh perhaps hopefully would sign and agree to be a sponsor of this bill. And then that will just increase its chances of being passed first by the Public Health Committee, then it goes to another committee, and then it finally goes to what they call the Ways and Means Committee. And if it gets past that committee, then it can be brought to the House floor for a full vote by the whole legislature. That's the legislative process in a nutshell. And then it goes to the governor's desk, and that's the way it's passed in all the other states, and that's the way we do it here too. So your state rep, Thomas Walsh, Salem's state rep, Representative Paul Tucker, a group of 12 of his constituents actually met with him. I could have been at that meeting, but they just chose to say, no, John, you don't need to come. We understand this bill well enough. We'll have a talk with our state rep and we'll try to convince him to support it. They had a great discussion with him. That was in April. He still hasn't signed on as a co-sponsor. So it's just a process of educating and informing and hopefully winning support from legislators who support this. Just like I'm talking to you, I don't necessarily assume that everybody listening, learning, and considering this issue necessarily is going to support it, but I'm certainly hoping that many of you will. I'll just add two more interesting facts about it and then kind of open it up for discussion. 3.5 years ago, December of 2017, the Massachusetts Medical Society, 28,000 physicians around the state, they took a poll of all their members, and they found a lot of the members were very open to considering that if this law were passed, they would consider helping patients, advising patients, and perhaps even choosing to prescribe the medication if the patient asked them as their primary care physician. Well, it went to the annual meeting in December of 2017, and they said, are we going to change our position from officially opposed, and it had been for a long time, officially opposed to medical aid in dying or death with dignity as an option, an end-of-life option? And they took a vote, and they actually ended the opposition. They didn't take outright support, a new position of outright support, but they said, we will take a new position of engaged neutrality. We will be neutral, so that if the legislature feels it's the will of the people to pass this bill and have this option legal in our state, we will, as a medical society, we will work with those doctors in our state who wish to assist patients in accessing this law. And they're going to want more information. So we're neutral. We're not saying we're for it or against it, but we'll work if it gets passed with doctors. Anyway, that was a big change. That's what's happened in all the other states that have passed it. The physicians, the medical community is really changing their view of this phenomenon, this option of death with dignity. And then lastly, I'll just say that more recently, last year, the Boston Globe, maybe some of you read this last September, they did a poll along with Flick University in Boston. And that poll, they just asked the question directly to, I don't know how large the polling was, 1,000 people or 2,000, whatever it was, around the state, And they found that 70% were in favor of medical aid in dying as an option when people are terminally ill and very sick and potentially suffering greatly at the end if hospice, can't keep the person comfortable. 70%. So clearly, a significant majority of the state is ready to see Massachusetts become the 11th state. There are 10 others, and Washington, D.C., which is not a state. So 11 jurisdictions, 10 states, one non-state, have passed this law. So 70% of our fellow Massachusetts citizens are ready to see Massachusetts become number 11. And that's what we are fighting for and hoping to achieve, if not later this year, at the end of this year, next, because we have a 2-year legislative process, starts in January of 2020 and it ends in July of next year. Starts in January 21, and it ends in July of 22. So we hope to get it done. So I will stop there. Thank you. I just lost my gallery view. Let's see if I can see a hand, or else Rabbi Perlman, maybe you could just pick somebody out.
If anyone has any questions, yeah, we spotlighted you so that people on Facebook and YouTube would see you.
Now I do.
If anyone has any questions, they're very, very good. These people are really, really nice people, and they don't step on each other. So just open your microphone, and if someone else is talking, just wait your turn. Who has any questions? If you do, please open your mic. Nobody. Here's your chance. Anyone with a question at all, or did he make it completely clear for you? I think Sandra's opening her mic. Are you doing that, Sandra? No? Okay. No, okay.
Well, I wonder if I could just ask.
Alan has a question for you. Alan?
Okay. No, I'm sorry, I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you so much for your efforts on this. I think it's such an important initiative. I don't live in the state, but I do work at a cancer center, and I see these issues often, and I just want to applaud your efforts and wish you all the best with it.
Thank you. Thank you. Which state do you work? Do you work at the?
I'm in Little Rock, at a cancer center in Little Rock.
We have people from all over the world that join us. And so that's why I wanted you to know, not only are we on Facebook and YouTube, but we also have people who join us in our Zoom room too. Rhonda?
What is, this is Stuart.
Stu.
What is the position of Judaism in terms of this policy?
You want to answer that, John, or should I?
I think you're much more qualified. Can you do it in 1 minute?
Yeah, I can do it in 1 minute. There is a Jewish issue with it. And again, the first thing that I tell people who come to me and ask me about this question is, from a halachic standpoint, you're not permitted to take one's life. And as John mentioned, nobody's taking anybody's life but yourself, right? The person is doing it to themselves. So you're not permitted to give that person the medication. But on one hand, we have to look at reality, we have to look at halacha. So halacha says that in order for someone to stop artificial life, one must have 3 main organs that have failed, and that that's it. There's no hope for them to continue to live. Judaism teaches that we're not permitted to prolong life beyond where it naturally would be, but we're also not permitted to speed up the process. So there is a halachic problem here. There is a halachic issue here. The question would be a personal decision that is being made by the patient, and that would definitely be in conflict with the religious facets or the religious beliefs that we as conservative or especially Orthodox Jews might have. Reform Judaism would have a different take on it, and certainly independents or people who are universalists or whatnot would have a different take on it. But Stuart, from your perspective and asking the question from a halachic standpoint, they would frown on it because we're not supposed to speed up the dying, natural dying process. But now let me talk to you about the practical part of it, because that happens to me so often. sometimes we just have to make our own personal decisions that are based on what is best for our loved one or ourselves, right? And specifically in ourselves. And it really is easy for all of us to make judgments for others. But when someone is given that sentence and they're told that they have 4 to 6 months to live, and if they are certainly of sound mind and body, and they have to live through this, then you're dealing with personal choice. And when you're dealing with personal choice, Stuart, I'm not so sure that it's a quick and easy answer or a 1 minute, as John wants me to do, a 1 minute answer of halacha. It is really more of a personal choice and a personal decision. And that I think we would want to talk about at a different time. But yes, halachically, you're not going to see rabbis jump on this. But practically, you probably will see more rabbis jump on it than you think. It has, I think it goes as well with the question of pro-life or whatnot. People make choices. People have the right to make choices. But does halacha say it's okay? It doesn't. So it's not a simple answer. It's not a simple, well, it is a simple answer. The answer is you shouldn't speed up the process of death. But it's really more of a personal answer. Stuart, does that answer your question enough? Because I want to stop there. I went over a minute.
No, I think that's fine, Rabbi. I appreciate, the thoughts on it, and realize that a situation like this is really so critical. It really has to be addressed on an individual case. So thank you for the comments.
You got it. And I told John in the past that I've had situations as a rabbi where I have been called to the hospital. I'll be careful here. This wasn't here, but we're all over the place right now. So I've been called to the hospital because a family would not allow a doctor to stop CPR. And it was on a Shabbos, I remember that. And they called me off the pulpit, believe it or not. And I went to the hospital and I said, what's the matter here? And the family was distraught. They want to stop CPR. I said, well, what's the status here? Well, we want them to save our loved one. I'm being really careful. I don't want to identify at all by saying him, her, or anything, because there might be some people that are listening. And I went into the room where they were doing the CPR, which was at the ER. And I said to the doctor, what are the chances of survival when you stop CPR? And they said 0, because the brain has stopped functioning. The heart is not functioning, obviously, CPR. And all of the other organs have shut down. So there's a 0 thing. So Jewish law says if you have 3 major organs that have shut down, you're not permitted to prolong life. Sometimes people need a rabbi to just say, stop. Which is what I looked at the family and said, you need to stop. So from a halachic standpoint, what leg or what ground did I have to stand on? I used the 3 organ shutdown, right? But I also used the compassion shutdown, stop. Because there's enough already, right? It's enough, nachamol, as they say, it's enough already. And you have to reach these decisions based on compassion. So if you have a loved one, or if you have someone who is suffering, it's individual.
I could add something to that, but I also just want to, does anybody else want to?
I think Mona has her mic open. Mona?
Oh, good.
I do. Most of you know, I took care of my mother at the end of her life in my house. She had lung cancer, and my husband. And I know my mother never would have, she was in a lot of pain, but she never would have wanted anything to prolong her life. She was not in hospice care. She was just in care. She wouldn't do it herself. My husband was in hospice care. He ended up being taken care of by them, and they were wonderful. They not only take care of the patient, but they take care of the family too. Thank God he had pancreatic cancer. Thank God he was never in a lot of pain. It just killed him. But when I was in college, to go back, I remember writing a paper on euthanasia. And, that was in the late 60s, early 70s. So, I think we should need to pass this law.
Hey, thank you, Mona. I'll just make a quick comment and then we'll turn it back to anybody else. Here's an interesting fact that, like in Oregon, that's had this law the longest, not a lot of people apply and take advantage of this law. I mean, maybe 250 people a year. So out of those 250 people, let's say last year, they applied, they qualified, they're terminally ill, they're mentally capable, they got the prescription, it's in their medicine cabinet, and it's just there. Fully 1/3 of those 250 people did not end up using the medication because, and this is with family members, survivors, surviving loved ones, they just tell the story that it gave the patient such a sense of comfort, peace of mind, kind of autonomy, self-control over, if this gets too difficult, I don't want to go through this. And I don't want my family to necessarily go through it, witnessing it, with me. So it gave enough strength to face whatever amount of pain and the end of their illness process. And it actually improved the quality of their life. Sometimes they even lived longer without the anxiety of wondering if it was just going to get so difficult at the end. I just find that so in other words, people who don't even choose to take it, actually, it provides so much comfort for a lot of people who are terminally ill.
Knowing they have the control, knowing they have that control if they need it. I have shared with you, John, in our previous discussion, my own personal situation, and I might as well again. My mother, oh halav shalom, of blessed memory, she wouldn't mind my saying this because it's a teaching moment, and she spent her life wanting me to teach. She was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she was told that she had 6 months to live. And I was called up to her room one day. I was doing morning services in their facility, and her femur had broken, shattered from the cancer which had spread. And we took her to the hospital. She was in terrible pain. And the doctors came in and looked at her and said, "We can fix your femur." And my mother was in just awful pain. And I said, "Mom, they can fix your femur. Now tell them how much time you have left to live." And she said, "Well, they told me 4 to 6 months." And I said, "Doctor, how long will it take for her to heal?" "Well, we'll fix it, and then it's going to take about 6 to 8 months for rehab and blah, blah, blah." I said, "Mom, what do you want to do?" She says, 4 to 8 months or whatever, 6 months to rehab, and I'm going to die from 4 to 6 months. I mean, why should I go through all of this aggravation and all this pain and all this suffering just to die? Not that I had to make that decision because I didn't have the law, but that's a classic example of someone of mine, really knowing what's going on in her mind, who had the chance because she was diagnosed and had that 6 months window, right? It wasn't like on the day of the femur break that you can't make that decision. Based on what I understand the law is, you have to have the time up to that and have that medicine in your medicine cabinet. But I think that's the classic example of someone who might have taken advantage of that law if it were in effect, because what she said was, "Please stop my pain." And I think she might have said, "Give me the pills." I think so. So What Mona said was pass the law. What I'm saying is, remember, every situation is different. Every situation is individual, and everyone has to make their own personal choice, and we have to respect those choices. And sometimes there's just not a broad brush answer. Arlene Teitelbaum.
Yes, I do have a question, John. There was a time in Massachusetts when abortion was not legal. And if one wanted to get an abortion, one had to find a willing physician to perform it. Now, if this becomes legal and your personal private physician is not in favor of it, what does one do in order to find a doctor when you're sick already, to find a doctor who's willing to give you the medication?
Yes, that is an excellent question and a legitimate concern. You know how a lot of people remember Ellen Goodman, that columnist in the Boston Globe? I think she started an organization called Consider the Conversation. Does that sound familiar to anybody? This is not new. In the last 10 years, she just was encouraging people to come to grips with the fact, talk to your family, talk to your rabbi, your clergy person, whoever it is, talk to your doctor about what you want, how much treatment, what kind of life prolonging treatment, or maybe not, and have the conversation, think about it. And of course, nowadays we have that, what's called a MOLST form, medical orders for life-sustaining treatment, along with a healthcare proxy. So people are really thinking, trying to plan ahead rather than be caught at the last minute, where you have 2 weeks to live. There's just not enough time to apply for a law like this or think it through. You're just so sick. Well, the answer to Arlene's question is, I guess I'll give you the personal example. Rabbi Perlman just gave his. Mine is not nearly as emotional, but I just asked my primary care provider at my annual physical. I'm healthy, I'm 74, but anything can happen. I said, what do you think about death with dignity, medical aid in dying? And if I was diagnosed suddenly, would you be willing? And she said, no, I'm not that comfortable with it. So that gives me, I'm not diagnosed terminally ill yet, and hopefully it won't be for 20 years.
You should never, right?
Oh yeah, thank you. But okay, now I know that my PCP is not comfortable with this. And like I said, doctors, it's totally optional. So I'm going to have to go and find somebody else. Now, fortunately, where I live in Western Mass, I can count 4 different doctors who are very outspoken about this issue in the Mass Medical Society, and they've been public about that. So I could probably just, but there might be some places, whether it's Peabody or wherever you may live, or smaller, people may need to find another doctor who is supportive of this. Well, you don't want to start that at the last minute.
Exactly.
The sooner you can get on it and know that, yeah. Because I want to make it clear, if you get a diagnosis of 6 months or less to live from your primary care physician, and you think you would like to access this option if it's passed here in the state, you have to wait 2 weeks and then go have another medical appointment with a different physician who will verify the first physician's diagnosis. 2 different physicians, 2 weeks apart. And sometimes it's hard to get appointments and all that, and then there's another safeguard. Then you have to get a 3rd appointment with a mental health professional. It doesn't have to be a psychiatrist, social worker, licensed mental health worker. And that person has to attest that you are cognitively able to make this decision. You are not under duress. You're not clinically depressed. You don't have family members that are urging you to, they ask all those questions. And that person, so there's 3 different appointments. That's going to take 4, 5, 6 weeks before your original doctor is going to be able to prescribe the medication, give a prescription that you go to the pharmacy and get it filled, and then you've got it in case you want to use it. It's a process, and because it has these safeguards built into it, that's why it's a process. But you can't wait until you're so sick at the end of life with a month to go or 2 weeks to go. No. it's not meant to serve people for an impulsive, rash, desperation kind of decision, because that could be misused or that could be abused. The person doesn't really know what they're asking for, but they took their life. They didn't really mean to. They were depressed or so. These laws are well thought out, but you can't wait till the end. You have to really find another doctor if your own won't.
Arlene, I wonder if, and again, John, I wonder if your primary care physician perhaps you said her, I think you said her, right? Would change her position if the law were in effect. I think it's one thing to ask a physician today, given the fact that the law doesn't exist, how they would feel versus after, somebody goes through the process and starts to become part of the community norm. The example of that was when we allowed same-sex marriages. Many of my colleagues would never officiate at a same-sex wedding, and today they are, because it's become the norm, it's become the law. So yeah, I think the answer that your doctor gave you is based on today's knowledge, today's data, today's laws. It could possibly be that if this law does pass and it becomes a law that people feel good with and comfortable with, a doctor might change their mind. Arlene, I may have interrupted you, and I'm sorry if you wanted to continue.
No, that's okay. I agree with what you said, but what I would suggest that if this law is passed, that somewhere there'd be a central registry that one could go to find a physician, so that if you are in the position where you're seeking that option, you shouldn't be required to spend all your time just looking for somebody. It should be, okay, here's somebody in your area whom you can call, just to make it a little less stressful for the person with the problem.
Exactly. And, perhaps the Massachusetts Medical Society, now that they are neutral, will have such we have a doctor on our board of directors. He's worked for 32 years at UMass Medical out in Worcester. He's a teaching, physician. And he said just that. The Mass Medical Society, whenever there's a law passed that affects public health, or health questions, the Mass Medical Society is informing and counseling and providing resources to doctors. So how do you work with this new law? So right. He said that will happen if this law is passed.
Right. How do you work with this new law?
But I also want to stress that there are physicians, just as there are citizens, who are opposed to this concept and this law on religious grounds or ethical grounds or values or whatever it might be. And there are some, it's a minority, but there are active physicians in this state who are trying to even change this decision that was made by the Mass Medical Society. Remember I said they went neutral 2017? They would like them to go back and be totally opposed. So your doctor might end up being just a strong opponent. That's just his or her belief. And that could happen. Maybe that's what my own primary care physician, I don't think so. I just think she hadn't really thought it through, and maybe she would end up just like Rabbi Perlman said, maybe she would come around once it was really legalized in the state. But I'm not sure.
Maybe yes, maybe no. I know some nurses that won't get vaccinated. So we all have personal decisions to make in our world and in our life. We have to respect them. We have to respect those differences. Like I said, some people do change as time goes on and whatnot, and they get more data, but some people do stick to their beliefs and faith or whatever it is, and that's okay. But it is good for you, as you said, to be knowledgeable. I think to do the research now as to which doctor's in favor of it, it might be a waste of time because there's no law yet. But to do what you're doing, which is to educate the community on this law. And by the way, I'm not telling I don't think that I have said one word to this group here of which way you should or shouldn't support or not support this bill, but you need to be educated about it. You have to understand what's out there. And if you're not, and if you don't understand what's out there, then how can we, be active people voting for these things and be educated community? And I think that's why you're here tonight, John. I hope that no one thinks that I am telling them you need to vote for this law. But now you tell us what it is you need for this group to do, should they be in agreement with you and want to do something about this law.
Rabbi Perlman just did the heavy lifting. I don't have to, all I have to say is, excuse me, for any of you at this point, I'm happy to, you could call me up, you could email me if you have other concerns or other questions, whatever. I'm happy to keep the conversation going. My job is simply to increase support for this so that it's even a greater majority than 70%, and get it done in the state. But for those of you who do feel like you support this now at this point and want to take any action, I would just encourage you to go to our website, Massachusetts Death with Dignity, and send me an email, or there's a phone number. And by the way, there's 25 stories, including Louis Kafka, that representative, remember that I mentioned, and his friend who died. So there's a lot of stories on there of loved ones who survived, and the person that died would have really liked to have this choice. And that's why they are supporting it and trying to get the law passed. So as I said, I actually choose communities like Peabody with a representative, as a legislator who is not who's on the fence, such as Thomas Walsh. Even though he said he was supportive last year, so far he hasn't supported the bill or co-sponsored it. So anybody who's really ready, I would be glad to assist with a message, a simple message. That's what I do. I just offer people sample messages, for whether it's a letter to the editor of the paper or a letter to the state representative, or your senator. You don't have to do that. Your Senator Joan Lovely is on board already, but Thomas Walsh would be great. If anybody's in Salem, as I said, Paul Tucker, we're looking to get him on, and Beverly, Representative Jerry Paracella. So anybody who's ready to act, that is great. Would appreciate your support. Just let us know by Massachusetts Death with Dignity. Go to the website.
Is it .org? .org?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we say goodnight, folks? With that, I'm going to say, John, thank you so very much. You've been very, very informative tonight. Great guest. We really appreciate it. A few mics opened up, so if anybody has any final things to say, go for it.
I just wanted to say
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Have a great night, and thank you very much. Good luck with the cause.
Thanks.
Everybody have a good night. We'll see you in shul tomorrow night. At what time, Adele? 8 o'clock.
I'm going to miss this, but thank you very much, Rabbi.
Oh, don't worry. We'll still be
You
doing
already have done
Zooming.
a
You
good
just
job.
not the same things, right?
And I hope that the people who come